And for an update on the situation in Kenya and South Sudan, joining us live via Skype from the Ugandan capital, Kampala, is VOA East Africa correspondent Jill Craig.
Laikipia in central Kenya has been especially hard hit by violence, especially in the last several months. And this was, most believe it was brought on by the drought, although some say that this has been happening way before the drought even started. But most of this violence has started within the last several months. And as a result, what has been happening is that many of the northern pastoralists have been coming down to Laikipia to make sure that their cattle, sheep, and goats have enough water and pasture, because the northern rangelands where they're coming from, the management has not been the best. So as a result, they don't have grass, they don't have water. They've been coming into central Kenya, into Laikipia region, and what's happening is that many of them are going onto private land, so private ranches and private conservancies. And what happens is that they are then pitted against the landowners who have their own cattle many times, or also in the conservancies, they're also competing with wildlife who also need access to that pasture, and they need access to the water. Complicating this further is that there's also local people who have their own cattle, goats, and sheep, and many of them have their own agreements worked out with these larger landowners so that they can graze their animals in those private areas themselves. So what has happened is that this drought has pitted so many people against one another, and another problem is that many of the northern pastoralists are bringing illegally acquired firearms and ammunition into these ranches, into these conservancies. And so when you actually visit these areas, if I could just paint a picture quickly for you, for people that have actually been on safari in central Kenya, they might remember it as a very lush place, lots of animals, lots of wildlife. It's a very popular location. The royals vacation when they come to Kenya at an area just on the border of Laikipia. So it's a very, very popular place on the tourist circuit. Currently, you see rocks, there's dust, and there's dead animal carcasses basically littering the landscape. Above, there's vultures circling and hyenas on the ground. And it seems to me right now that the vultures and the hyenas are the only ones who are doing well in central Kenya.
From what you have been able to see, what is the fundamental cause of the ongoing drought in that region?
Is that the reason why why this problem has become so intense is for a few reasons. One, the pastoralists from northern parts are bringing tens of thousands of cattle in addition to sheep and goats. And so they have pretty much overgrazed most of the communal lands in northern Kenya. And as a result, when you overgraze, that means that the root has actually been pulled out. And that makes it very, very difficult for several seasons to regrow that pasture unless proper measures are taken. Right now, there's not a real strong form of rangelands management, from what I've been told, and so as a result, they can't stay there because they have no resources for their animals. So another problem complicating this particular drought, Shaka, is that, as your listeners I'm sure are aware, Kenya is gearing up for its elections in August, and what has been happening is that some of the politicians have been alleged to be inciting their followers and their constituents, many of these pastoralists, to go down onto private lands and feel free to take what they need, which has further complicated this situation. Many of them are angry because many of these ranches and conservations are owned by whites, and they're telling their constituents that it's time to take their land back. Now, when you talk to local people who are in the direct vicinity, and I can say this, and I interviewed many locals, they do not want the Mzungu or white people to leave. They say that these are the people that have helped them in this particular drought. I kind of stumbled into a few food distributions on my reporting assignment, where some of the local landowners were distributing food, and then in other cases they had actually pumped water from their own boreholes to help the local villagers. So from what I could ascertain from my interviews, people are for the most part, very pleased with their rancher neighbors, and they're upset that these newcomers are bringing firearms into their villages. They are stealing their livestock, and for a small holder, having 15 sheep or goats stolen is a big deal. And so local people are not happy. And so as a result of all of this, Kenya has deployed its military, which started operations, I believe, at the end of last week. And today they kicked into higher gear.